Good afternoon, everyone. We'll be starting in just a few moments as attendees cycle into the Zoom room. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. It is 2:01 p.m. Eastern. The meeting of the 2026 Mid-Year House of Delegates will please come to order. Please see Agenda Item 2, Announcements. If there are no objections, those members serving as chairs of committees or task forces or as representatives of ASCLS who are not also delegates will have the privilege of the floor as necessary for the purpose of giving information relevant to a report. Members of the staff of the executive office shall also be granted the privilege of the floor as needed.
Recording
no,
progress.
I'm sorry. Oh. Hearing no objection, permission is granted. I would like to introduce the ASCLS Board of Directors. Board members, please turn on your camera if it is not already on when your name is called and be recognized. Stacy Robinson, President-elect. Pat Tilley, past President.
Here.
Camarine Roberts, Secretary-Treasurer.
Here.
Miles Tompkins, Director.
He's trying to get in, by the way.
All right, thank you. Jesse Day, Director.
Present.
Melissa Casper, Director.
Present. And at my computer now. Yay.
Awesome, wonderful. Heather Harrington, Director.
Present.
Nicholas Moore, Director.
Present.
Lindsay Davenport Landry, Director.
Here.
Steph Noblet, Director.
Sorry, I was on mute here.
No worries. I knew I saw you. Kelsey Harper, Director.
Here.
Allie Murphy, Director.
Here.
Josh Polito, Director.
Present.
Oji Oheto, Ascending Professional Director.
Here.
Grace Overbeek, a Developing Professional Director.
Here.
I would like to also introduce the ASCLS staff. Jim Flanagan, Executive Vice President. Melanie Giusti, Director of Professional Development.
Present.
Andrea Hickey, Director of PACE and Operations.
Here.
Julia O'Donnell, Director of Marketing and Communications.
Here.
And Jen Meltreader, Director of Membership and Constituent Services.
Here.
Having served as Secretary-Treasurer, I know how to take a roll call quite well, which is a nice benefit at this moment. Now, comments or questions will be entertained at the end of the discussion of each topic in our agenda. I would like to remind everyone that those speaking will be granted courtesy with respect to their comments and opinions. We are here to conduct business in the best interest of our society. Speakers should present in a constructive and positive manner. Please remember to speak clearly and distinctly when recognized so that everyone will have no difficulty hearing your name, affiliation, and the business to be discussed. If you do have comments, please raise your hand using the Zoom tools. I will then recognize you as chair. You will then be allowed to unmute yourself and speak at that point. The most important step for you is to make sure you raise your hand, and then I'll be able to know that you have something to say and recognize you. Please refer to Agenda Item 3A, Standing Rules. Please note that the standing rules adopted at the annual House of Delegates meeting in Sacramento, California, this past June, are still in force and were provided to you all as delegates. Please refer to Agenda Item 4A, President's Update. You should all be able to see my screen. Can I just get a verbal confirmation from someone on the board?
We can see.
Yes.
Perfect. And Nick, do you have something to quickly say with the hand raise? Nope. Okay. Well, everyone, since we met in June, it has been a very busy and very productive 6 months for ASCLS. As I frequently try to outright say or allude to in my different communications that I send out, being the president of this organization this year, and I'm sure past presidents can say the same for their year, is truly a professional inspiration for me. The talent, the drive, the passion, and the joy that our community brings together is truly something that fills the soul with a lot of positivity and power. And so I'd like to reflect on some of the high-level items that we've accomplished and are working on. And I'd like to start by also adding, this is not an exhaustive list of everything that we're doing in the organization, just kind of a moosh-boosh of what the big topics are. In terms of our pillar of community, we hosted our first Women of Laboratory Science Summit this past October in Old Town, Alexandria, Virginia. It was considered a monumental success by those who attended. In fact, the post-event feedback we received was glowing. We had an exceptional net promoter score where it is the highest ranked event ASCLS has ever held. One of the comments that really stuck out to me was the event was deeply empowering and unlike anything else ASCLS has offered before. I left feeling inspired, connected, and motivated to continue growing, both personally and professionally. I want to take a moment and thank all of the members who attended the Women of Laboratory Science Summit, and also thank our facilitator, Tawana Wilson, for bringing this event together. Now, that being said, the ASCLS Board of Directors has to have further discussion on the event's finances, its sustainability, and if we are able to offer it in the future. So that will be an ongoing discussion, and we are hoping to have that finalized at the upcoming interim board meeting being held next month. But we can't guarantee anything at this point because the board has to execute its due diligence in reviewing all of the financial affairs and sustainability elements of this new event. We've also begun the rollout of the Lambda Tau Medical Laboratory Honor Society. Lambda Tau is a long existing honor society for medical laboratory students across this country. While it was still ongoing, it needed an infusion of further support and talent to be able to amplify the value it brings for potential students and programs. We're able to do that in ASCLS. If you're interested in starting a chapter or are someone that would like to tell your local educational programs, hey, you need to start a chapter, do feel free to scan the QR code. I apologize for the T-Rex. Google Chrome automatically makes it a T-Rex QR code, and I'm not paying to make it any fancier. But we are excited to have this as a community offering because we're looking forward to elevating and amplifying the power and the voice of our developing professionals who are highly succeeding in our programs. Next up, this is a critically important item I want to remind the House of Delegates about. It's our annual constituent health survey. Now, the deadline was back in November, and we still have quite a few groups that are pending and have not completed it. You all are listed there. Some of these groups are either approaching dormancy or not, or are dormant, I apologize. And so if you're approaching dormancy or are dormant, we understand you're not going to submit a health survey. We understand that. But there are groups on that list that we know are still highly functional with exceptionally capable leaders, and this probably just fell off of your ever-expanding to-do list. But that being said, this health survey is critically important for the future state of ASCLS. We're able to collect data that allows us to drive decisions that benefit the entire organization. We're not doing it for punitive purposes. We're doing this because with actual data, we are able to make decisions more thoughtfully and in a more informed way. So if you're still one of the groups that hasn't had an opportunity to complete this yet, you're going to be getting reminder emails soon. So we do ask that you complete this. It is going to really tie into what Director Davenport Landry will be discussing soon with potential changes we're making to some policies related to constituent societies. And so if we can get into the flow of doing this year after year after year, we're going to have meaningful data, and we're going to be able to use a potentially new policy to drive a stronger grassroots network across ASCLS. In the pillar of knowledge, we continue to have exceptional virtual learning offerings. Through our cooperative agreement with the CDC, we were able to offer at no charge to members and non-members the Cultivating Laboratory Leadership and Wellbeing Certificate Program, which was adopted by a huge number of medical laboratory professionals. In addition, we changed the timeline for ELMC Squared this year. And I will tell you, Cindy Johnson and the ELMC Squared Steering Committee, along with Melanie Giusti as their staff liaison, really worked tirelessly from the end of last year's event to November on an expedited time frame to get that rollout happening. And it went off very well this past November. So thank you to all of you who have been involved in these tremendous virtual learning efforts. We also have our classic in-person yet hybrid learning events coming up here soon. In a few short weeks, many of us will be in Bellevue, Washington to enjoy CLEC 2026. We're looking forward to the event, which will have an incredible in-person showing this year, much higher than we've seen last year or even the year before. In addition, don't forget, at the end of June this year, we're going to be having our joint annual meeting in beautiful St. Louis, Missouri. I hope that you'll consider joining us for that event, whether you're a delegate or not. In the pillar of advocacy, we have a lot going on. It's been a little bit of a busy year for advocacy. If you are interested in being a advocate, but you're not quite sure who you should contact, you want a little bit of training on it, you just need a little bit more of a foundation to feel supported from ASCLS. Boy, oh boy, do we have the program for you. It's the Advocate Ambassadors Program. Advocate Ambassadors can be members of ASCLS, but they don't have to be members of ASCLS. Essentially, we want the voice of laboratory professionals to be amplified through this ambassador network. And we would like to have every member of Congress represented by a laboratory professional who is part of this Advocate Ambassadors Program. If you're interested in learning more, finding out about some of the training opportunities that are part of this program, feel free again to use this T-Rex QR code to be able to go and sign up. I will tell you that I have joined as a Advocate Ambassador, and while this program is still in its formative stages, the fact that we have so many interested and passionate individuals wishing to work together with a targeted member of Congress who they want to have their voices heard with is incredible. In addition, we've been working very closely with our partners at the Stop Lab Cuts programming. If you were able to join us this past Thursday for the webinar on the stakes of PAMA reform with Patrick Cooney, Susan Van Meter, and Joyce Gresco, you really sat in on a great webinar on this topic. The three presenters were able to demonstrate to us the challenges that are going to happen come February 1st if we don't have PAMA reform occur. And they were also able to share the steps that we can take to change this. The trajectory is the most positive it has been in months. We have a true opportunity to have PAMA reform happen, but it is going to take all of us. And as I noticed Kathy Doig in our Connect community say in response to a post recently, it's very easy to go to stoplabcuts.org and have a message sent to your members of Congress. They are listening. The Results Act was part of a congressional hearing 2 weeks ago, and it generated a lot of interest. We can do this, but we really have to stand up for ourselves to protect access for our patients. I also want to call out that advocacy is not just an ASCLS at a national scale item. I want to congratulate all the constituent societies like ASCLS Montana who are hosting a Ladvocate Day or a Ladvocate series yourselves. Montana happens to be doing it in a few short weeks on Thursday, February 5th, and I wanted to make sure I congratulated them for this incredible effort. They're going to have Ann Tate, their current president and a member of our PAC, along with a legislative assistant from their senator's office, talk about advocacy affairs. We as a grassroots organization can truly make impact, and we should celebrate it and not try and overcomplicate it, because we all know our profession, and advocacy is about amplifying our knowledge to those who have policymaking capacity. So thank you to ASCLS Montana and any of you that host these events at your constituent society level. Speaking of agendas and advocacy, I do want to mention that the advocacy agenda we will be speaking about later on during this mid-year meeting has been the most important tool I have had at my disposal this past year. It comes as probably no shock to any of you that federal regulations and legislation have been fast and furious this past year. And because of that, ASCLS and the number of coalitions that we belong to send letters that we could sign on to and give us very short notice to sign on to them. Sometimes it's a matter of a day between when we get notice and an ask to sign on to a letter and when we need to make that decision by. The advocacy agenda empowers me and to be able to say, this is what ASCLS supports. So it's very important later on in the agenda, if you have feelings about items here, that you share them, because this document is a living document, and it's already been reviewed by the ASCLS Board of Directors and our Government Affairs Committee, and we're looking for your feedback as a House of Delegates as well. Now, a little bit of a different kind of advocacy, but again, I always like to call out our partnership with Diagnostic Equity, which is brought to us by the organization Diverse Health Hub. This is where our consumer information response team moved and transitioned to. If you're interested in helping patients be able to understand their lab results, and providers understand the lab results, since they do get questions like that from time to time, the QR code there will bring you to Diagnostic Equity's website, and you can identify if it's a volunteer opportunity that you would be interested in. Some recent board actions I would just like to bring to your attention. We have had some incredible discussions about finance in this organization. If you were with us at our fall board meeting in November, you will know that we adopted a change in philosophy in our budgeting and financial models, which we are going to be looking at generating net surpluses year over year moving forward to rebuild our net assets, to be able to, to be able to execute upon our mission. In addition, we're going to be having a direct-to-consumer task force, which will be examining what's going on in the direct-to-consumer space when it comes to laboratory tests. If you've been keeping up with the news recently, there are several organizations, companies, for-profit companies, that are now doing direct-to-consumer advertising. And I think this is a space that as an organization, we want to be well informed on and make important decisions to advocate for our patients with. And that task force will collate that information and provide a report to the board of directors. Finally, the board has been looking, and we will be discussing today as a House of Delegates, our governance structure and looking at it very analytically and seeing what changes would be necessary or may be necessary to assure that ASCLS continues to fulfill its mission. and some friendly reminders I'd like to share. Spring board reports from your constituent societies or committees, if you happen to be on one, are due February 5th. Please note that I shared the link to those reports in the appropriate Connect communities. If you didn't get that link, feel free to reach out to me and I will be glad to get it to you. In addition, I want to just give a brief call out that the annual call for volunteers will be coming soon from our President-elect Stacey Robinson and our Appointments Committee. So if you're interested in volunteering on one of our standing committees, forums, or councils, keep an eye out for that call. That's my president's update for this mid-year meeting. Can I entertain any questions at this time about the report? Seeing none, please refer to agenda item 4B, Finance Update. Secretary Treasurer Camerine Roberts has the floor.
Hey, everyone. Let's see if I can get this to work. Share. Fantastic. Am I sharing? Can everybody see my screen?
Looks great, Camerine.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So mid-year updates from the Finance Committee. And again, of course, if there are any questions, there is time at the end of the presentation. So please take notes and let me know what you guys think. So for the financial overview so far, and please keep in mind that this is data that I have as of December. We totaled our financial liabilities and assets at minus 128 at the end of fiscal year 25. There was a lot going into to this figure. However, I will say as of the end of Q1, we are currently sitting at about $670,000. We have primary drivers for this number so far. Again, as of the end of Q1, those primary drivers are CLEC, PACE, and our revenue from JAM. And I do want to point out that we do have an area that is behind in our category of membership. Okay, for our positive drivers, for CLEC, as Kyle stated, registration has been ahead of schedule, and as of his update today, we are greatly ahead of the numbers that we originally budgeted for CLEC. So once CLEC is finished and we have those total numbers set down, I think CLEC will be a huge positive for our organization. Also, in looking at PACE, we have seen an increase year over year from Q1 2024 to Q1 2025. We're at about 119,000 in PACE as of Q1. Want to point out that our providerships have remained the same, but we did have a fee increase for those. So that is where this big jump is coming from primarily. So I am hoping that we do get more providerships so that we can continue to see this particular value increase over the year as well. So areas that we're monitoring for improvement, of course, we've all been talking about JAM 2026 and South Mills participation. We did take a hit in that area for 2025 in Sacramento, and we're really hoping that with South Mills participation, they will bring their numbers in, their registrants, as well as the industry partners. We're really looking to have a lot of those industry partners return to us. And of course, that will bring in some revenue for us as well. So we are closely monitoring the conversation with South Mills to prepare for JAM this year. And as of membership, we are currently down in our numbers, but that's generally normal for this time of year. We also did note that our group education packages are down but they do have more members included in those packages. So that means we have more developing professionals that are joining on, that are going into the programs and joining up through these educational packages. So our focus as members and leaders would be to carry these developing professionals into ascending professionals and into professional membership. So that is a goal that I hope all of us can take on as leaders in the organization. So ways that we are looking to continue to grow, of course, we're going to monitor ways that we reduce our spending. We've taken a lot of steps, and I think in my next report, I'll be able to give more details as to the steps that we've taken and the financial result that we've seen from those steps. But we are looking at ways to continue to reduce our spending. We are thinking about potential sponsored events at our events like CLEC, as well as opportunities at JAM. And as well, we're looking for our royalties and advertising. There's some conversation that the board is having amongst our advertising and our royalties. So we're looking to see if we can utilize those dollars to help build our revenue. Okay. And that is really my report for right now. Does anybody have any questions or anything specific that they would like me to answer at this time? Okay, I don't see any hands, so
Oh, no, we do have,
sorry.
I would like to recognize Emily Reed.
Thank you. I can't see that from my screen, so sorry, Emily.
Not a problem.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Hey, Emily.
Great. Hi, this is Emily Reed. I'm from Pennsylvania. Could you speak to what sort of royalties and advertising that's currently coming in now, like what ASCLS is currently doing in that regard?
The major one that I'm aware of at the moment is there is a newsletter that we participate in. And that newsletter, we do receive ad dollars from that newsletter. And so we're looking to see the benefit of maintaining that newsletter membership and if the money that we are receiving from that participation. But I do not have the specific dollar amount as to the revenue from that at this time. I do not.
I would like to now recognize Halcyon St. Hill. Hallie, you should be able to unmute yourself for your question.
Okay, with that particular report, with having those royalties, can you give us some insights on what royalties they are, what kind of royalties, what company, is it many companies? Could you give us some insights on that?
I will be 100% honest with you. I cannot at this time. And that is just for my not having the full information, so I do not want to give partial data. So
Well,
I do believe I will take that note, and in my next finance report that I'll be giving to the larger group, I will have that information.
yeah, and something I think might be helpful to some of us is that I know what a Q1 is, but some people may not be aware that it's a quarterly and for what period.
Sure.
Yeah. And the packages, the membership packages, I don't know much about that. Could you tell us a little bit about those membership packages that you talked about, the education package, membership packages?
Sure. So the programs can purchase education packages, which allows a group of members to
Oh, okay.
group of individuals to be members under that one package at schools.
Got you.
If your
Thank you.
program has it. Okay, thank you.
That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hallie. I'd like to now recognize Bill Hunt.
Hunt, Pennsylvania. My question is there a way that we can actually get the detailed balance sheet of ASCLS? I mean, it's very concerning that we're running in the red.
Short answer, I believe to that is yes. And I do believe it is available on requests. It's not something that is put out just as generally, like it's not posted on the Connect community, for example, but I know it is available on requests, and I can take back to the board as to whether or not we want to make that information publicly available and in what format. Because it would be a question as to what line item specifically individuals are looking for, because to put the whole finance sheet out, I think would take a little bit of extra work. Not that anything that we can't do, it's just would be a conversation as to how we would put it out.
What is the process of getting that balance sheet?
I would have to work with Jim to get that, and it would come from our accountants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to once again recognize Dr. St. Hill. Hallie, you would need to unmute yourself.
Sorry. I believe we used to get that information in the past, those balance sheets. And I think it's really important for us to have those available to our membership, at least for the delegate meetings and that we hold. And the other point is that we are a nonprofit, as far as I know. And as such, our balance sheet should be at least open to its membership, because that is considered depending on your organization. And I've been on 2 other boards. Right now, I'm on another board as a nonprofit, and our balance sheet, all of that is exposed on the internet online. So I don't think there is any reason for us as a membership organization in a professional arena not to see those documents, even if you don't want to put it online for the world to see, but for at least the membership to be able to see.
Sure, and I do not disagree with that at all. I have just not been made privy to the access to release those myself. But as I said, I will definitely work with Jim on getting those documents out.
I would appreciate if the board would handle these things in the sunlight like it has always been done.
I would like to, I would like to say.
I am not arguing. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
I would like to remind the delegation on this point. Finance documents have been publicly available in board books. It has been done in the sunlight. If any member at any time would like further accounting details, we would be willing and able to provide that. But documents are provided on a routine basis in the board books, which we have taken incredible lengths this past year to make sure we're getting out with advance notice. I'd like to now recognize Lindsay Davenport Landry.
Thank you. I was actually going to bring up that the balance sheet is included with the annual audit. And that is included when the board approves the annual audit in the board packet. So that usually occurs in the summer or in the fall, depending on when we have the audit done. And we were more in the red at the beginning of the year, but if you look, the finance committee and everyone has worked hard, and we're currently not showing a deficit for this year. So we are working to move back into the black. A big hit last year, like Cameron mentioned, was the national meeting because SAFS Mill's inability to join us. So that is why last year looked worse than the last few years. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at these numbers this year, please.
Thank you, Lindsay. And I think one point I want to make out, and it may be a question of frequency. As Lindsay stated, we do release a full balance sheet. So if there's a matter of on a quarterly basis every 3 months, if that's the release schedule, that is something the board would have to discuss. and get out to the membership, at least minimum the delegates, but it's not something that is off the table. So if a frequency is the question of the release of our finances, that is a conversation that I'm happy to have and figure out the best way to satisfy that request.
So
Other-
I would like to, Hallie, I can give you the floor as long as it's a different question, because Standing Rule 10 states a member may speak not more than twice and not more than 3 minutes on the same subject on the same day. And so you have brought up the balance sheets twice now. If it's a different question, I'd be happy to entertain that. You can unmute yourself if it is a different question, Hallie.
No, I am good.
Thank you.
Question was asked by the other person. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, Secretary Treasurer Roberts, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know from personal experience, it is quite the challenge in your first year in this role, and I want to commend you in front of this body for the hard work you have put into it. So thank you for your hard work these past months.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So moving forward, and you're getting the round of applause you deserve right now.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes. Please refer to agenda item 4C, Elections Committee. Elections Committee Chair Barbara Brown from the great state of Colorado can now be given the floor. And Barbara gets to boss me around with the PowerPoint slides. So if we can make Barbara able to speak.
Barbara is a panelist now, should be able to speak.
Perfect.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank President Ryder and the Board of Directors and for giving me this opportunity to talk to you about our elections update. As you may remember, the House of Delegates last year at JAP 2025 voted to allow all eligible members of the society, professional members, emeritus members, developing professional members, and ascending professional members, the opportunity to vote for the officers of the society, the members of the nominations committee, and the members of the judicial committee. So that is what we have been working on this past year to update the SOPs of the elections. And with my committee members, Kim Van Assen and Norma Bavona, and our consultant, Holly Weinberg, we have put together a presentation to just give you some general information about what will be occurring in the coming months. The board has not approved our update to the SOP yet. That will happen at the interim board meeting in March. But I am hopeful that all of these updates will be acceptable to our board of directors. What is going to happen is, in order to allow all of the members, the eligible members to the of the society to vote, and those eligible members I already mentioned, and they will be in good standing. In other words, having their dues up to date. In order to do this, we will not be voting at JAM. We will not be having candidate presentation at JAM. What we will be doing is the election process that I'm going to generally talk about today will be listed in the ASCLS Today in the Society News Now, in the open forum. And so be on the lookout for all of these in the next coming months. It will be very important, and I want to emphasize this very strongly, that the office has all of you members, has all of your email addresses and phone numbers correct, because you will be notified about what is going on with the election process through these two channels. And this is how you will be voting on these candidates. Okay, so what will happen is somewhere in the next March or April, we will be doing the I'm not there yet, Kyle. We will be doing the AMAs, the Ask Me Anything videos from all of the candidates. And you will also be getting a video of the candidates talking about their goals and what they hope to do if and when they are elected. The voting timelines, now you can switch to that, Kyle, please. The voting timelines will begin in early to mid-May. The ballot will be presented, and the ballot will include voting for a president-elect, vote for one. We'll be voting for a director for the board of directors, vote for three. The nominations committee, and vote for five, and the judicial committee, vote for one. The ballots will open in early to mid-May, and you will receive a timetable for that covering all of the time zones that all of our members live in. And it will remain open for 1 week. So you will have 7 days in order to look at the ballot and look at the videos and decide who it is that you want to vote for. The results will then be looked at by the Elections Committee and the Judicial Committee. And if a runoff is necessary, then that will be scheduled and that will be announced, and it will be open for 4 days, not 1 week. It will be open for 4 days, and those dates will be set on the time schedule. If there is another runoff, and we hope that that will not happen, then that also will be given a new date and will be open for 4 days also. The candidates will be notified of their election, and then the ASCLS community will be notified. And at the House of Delegates and during the JAM 2026 meeting in St. Louis, all of the candidates, all of the newly elected members of the society will be there to be congratulated and to be installed. Okay, so you will be getting all this information through the various media that I spoke about, the ASCLS Today, and on the open forum, and the Kyle Writings updates, and all the other social media that we have. So what I want to express very firmly again is to make sure that your email and your telephone number are up to date and correct with the office. If they are not, please contact the office and make sure that that information is corrected. If there are any questions about the new proposals and stuff, I'm ready to answer them.
Thank you, Barbara. At this time, I'd like to recognize Mary Ann Downs.
Hi. Sorry, I'm losing my voice, but we'll try to do this as best as I can. Do we have or is there data on the number of current members who do not use electronic means of communication? I know there is one in Pennsylvania.
I'll defer that to one of the staff members.
I can tell you that I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I do know that there are members who have non-functioning email addresses. It's less than 25. And so it'll be very important that we get up-to-date email addresses for them as best we can. One of the reasons why the task force has recommended putting information in a printed ASCLS today is specifically to reach people without email addresses that we might be reaching or need to reach, and make sure that they get their profiles updated with proper credentials.
Thank you. I'd like to now recognize Emily Reed. Emily disappeared, so hopefully her question. Oh, can we please recognize Emily Reed? Jem, she had her hand up first. So Emily, feel free to unmute.
Sorry about that. Thank you. This is Emily Reed from Pennsylvania. Barbara, thank you so much to yourself and the Elections Committee for going through this new process. I like the idea of having these videos available to the members asynchronously so that we can get information about the candidates. But what happens if we have a question about the candidates and we want something clarified before we vote for them? That was a benefit to having presentations at JAM. And what is our process for addressing that with this asynchronous idea?
Well, Emily, if you have any specific questions for any of the candidates ahead of time, or while the videos are available, you can. I'm assuming that Mark DeLeon of the nominations committee would be able to handle that. You can send questions to the nominations committee for them to incorporate into their video presentations. And I would go through the nominations committee to promote those questions. And if not, you can always contact me and I can find out the answer for you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'd like to now recognize, and I've never said your last name before, so I apologize, Clayton, if I mess it up, but I'd like to recognize Clayton Fracker at this time.
Thank you. I just was wondering, where is the information being pulled from for this? As far as emails and phone numbers, is it from the profile area underneath the ASCLS.org website? Like, could individuals just go there and update it rather than attempting to contact the office if need be?
I think that would, I'm not exactly sure, but I think that would be the way to do it. I always check on that periodically to make sure that everything is correct. So your profile on the members part of the ASCLS website has your opportunity to edit your emails or your phone numbers or your addresses, any of your contact information.
And Barbara, if I may, I think this we're seeing a host of questions on that part of the process. So I think as part of our communication strategy, we can make sure we create an FAQ document of some kind that outlines how to check your information and change it as necessary. And I believe we already have those, so we can make sure. Because that is a pressing concern I see and hear from folks right now. So we'll want to make sure that's addressed.
Okay.
Up next, I'd like to recognize Darby Nahidi. And Darby, disappeared, so hopefully Darby is feeling up. Perfect. If we can recognize Darby. And you should be able to unmute now.
Okay. Hello. Everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. For those Darby Nahidi from Illinois, thank you for the floor. Also a comment, if you lower your hand, that is when Kyle thinks that you disappeared for future reference. Also, thank you for, I mean, I'm so happy to hear about this elections process and that it's going to be implemented so soon. To the, like referencing the first question and concern on members who do not communicate electronically, and though they may be far and few in between, it would be inequitable and unjust if they didn't have also the opportunity to vote, even if they voluntarily do not use their email, or keep their phone. Maybe they don't have a cell phone, maybe they use landline. With that respect, has the committee thought of implementing any form of mail-in ballot that goes out with ASCLS today? And I had another thought, but I've completely forgotten it. So that's my question.
Well, as Kyle mentioned, we will publish a list of FAQs in the next in the open forum and in ASCLS today that hopefully will cover your question about that and maybe giving some information about how to contact these individuals who might not be on the electronic spectrum. One of the things that I would suggest is contacting if you are one of these individuals, contacting your state officers and find out if maybe they could arrange a meeting someplace in the hospital conference room or somewhere that you could utilize a society computer and do your voting that way. But as I said, we will try to put together some FAQs and answer some of these questions that are coming up. And again, I'm always available to help you in any way I can.
Thank you. I did remember my second thing. Do we still plan to have a meet the candidates Zoom meeting where we can ask them questions in real time online?
Yes, there will be Ask Me Anything sessions that will
Okay.
occur. Sorry
Thank
to usurp you on that, Barbara, but I knew the answer right off the top of my head.
Thank you.
I'd like to now recognize Miles Tompkins.
Hello, Director Tompkins, Oklahoma. I just wanted to clarify because I believe there was a misspeak in there. This is to start in 2027 if voted on at the House of Delegates in 2026, correct?
No.
No,
this is going to start this year.
This was voted on at the 2025 House of Delegates.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, this whole new election process will go into effect over the next few months.
Okie dokie, thank you.
I'd like to now recognize past President Pat Tilley.
Come on, technology, behave. I just wanted to extend my thank you to the election committee. This is a group of people that worked last year to get member voting at large. And I know, listening to the comments, we've had a lot of conversations about how to ensure as many of our members possible have the opportunity to vote. We're going to do everything we can, and I know the committee has addressed that, and nominations is working on some great things because I sit on that committee. It's going to be impossible for us to guarantee everybody, but I know that has been a thing that we've worked very hard on. So I would also encourage state societies and presidents, there's lots of communities out there to share the information as you get it with your constituents because that'll help us.
Thank you, Pat.
Wonderful. Well, Barbara, I want to thank you for taking on this task as chair of elections. I think you sealed your fate at a recent board meeting when you said seasoned members like yourself should be sought out to do important work for the organization. And certainly I'm letting you put your money where your mouth is, and you're doing an incredible job. So I appreciate you. I appreciate the committee. And, I would like to say that with all things, when there's a change in practice, we learn, we evolve, we focus on growth. And so as we evolve into this new part of our bylaws that was approved back last summer, that we show grace and that we understand that evolution can occur. So thank you, Barbara. I appreciate your hard work on this.
Thank you, Kyle.
All right. All right, please refer to agenda item 4D, 118th Congress Advocacy Agenda Update. I'll now share my screen. So before you is the current suggested updates to the advocacy agenda. I would like to just talk about the workflow on this and where we would go after today's meeting. So back last year at this mid-year House of Delegates, then President Pat Tilley brought this document to you all after it had been reviewed by the Board of Directors and our Government Affairs Committee. We were looking for general feedback or to find out if there were any items that were hard stops and no's that we weren't seeing, we didn't have visibility on. That being said, we understand that advocacy is an evolving space. We understand that there are going to be changes in our priorities that need to occur. And so back this past November, the ASCLS Board of Directors began this discussion by looking at the advocacy agenda as it was adopted at this time last year. There were some suggested edits that were provided that we will walk through here in a few moments. It was then sent to the Government Affairs Committee, who deliberated on it and provided some feedback that was incorporated into the document. It is now being brought to you all as our House of Delegates in its red line format to again check these edits and make sure that there are no hard stops. Now, of course, there may be varying perspectives and different opinions on this, and it may be a minority opinion on it, but it still matters to be heard because language can be malleable. We may strengthen verbiage on something or weaken verbiage on something. So the discussion that may occur today, you may all be fine with this and have nothing to add, but the discussion that is going to be held around this will help us massage the language, help us understand if it's still appropriate, and the board will then be able to sit back and say at our February check-in call, we're comfortable with this, this is what we're doing moving forward. So that being said, there are very few red lines on this to report, but the ones that are present are important. The first is right here. ASCLS will oppose efforts that restrict or reduce access to federal financial aid for students interested or enrolled in undergraduate or graduate programs in the profession. The rationale behind the inclusion of this statement is if you have been paying attention to some of the federal regulations that have been proposed over the last several months, there has been a great degree of concern over what actually denotes a professional graduate degree. And that change in if something is considered a professional graduate degree or not changes lifetime loan limits. And so if we, in our graduate programs in this profession, are not considered professional degree programs, it could harm students that rely on federal aid. And that was the background behind adding that. The next is ASCLS will support, not even going to try and highlight it, will support the reestablishment of CLEAC, or a similar advisory group within the Department of Health and Human Services. As you all know, back in early May, Health and Human Services dissolved CLEAC along with many other advisory committees. ASCLS, along with our partners, strongly believe that there should be CLEAC or some other similar advisory group helping HHS make decisions around our profession. And then scrolling down, the final red line was a strengthening of language around some of the vaccine or the vaccine statement that we make. The original statement was ASCLS will oppose efforts to weaken vaccination standards via the regulatory or sub-regulatory process. Through the deliberations that have happened, as I've mentioned, that language has evolved into ASCLS will support the research, development, and use of evidence-based vaccines and vaccination schedules for children and adults, and will oppose efforts to weaken vaccination standards and the spread of vaccine misinformation. At this time, I would like to request if anyone has any comments they would like to provide on this document. I'd also like to note that these can be some rather charged political items, and to remind us all that we are here to benefit our organization and ultimately our mission and the patients we serve. So if we can remain constructive and objective, I would appreciate it. At this time, I would like to recognize Ed Peterson.
Yes, question. In regards to the red lines here,
yes.
For those programs that have post-bac programs, would they be included in the undergraduate or graduate programs as far as being eligible for federal financial aid?
Pat, jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe post-bacs wouldn't fall into the graduate loan limits, but I don't want to, I'm not saying that with my full chest because I'm not fully sure.
Yeah, post-bac programs typically are certificate programs and often are considered either certificate or undergrad, so I don't believe they fall into the graduate category.
Okay, yeah, so we're okay. If the both of us are on the same wavelength on it, so yeah, to answer your question, Ed, likely the post-bacs would not be impacted by what DOE was proposing, but given that discussion is occurring, we want to make sure they don't try and creep into those post-bac spaces.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'd like to now recognize Mary Ann Downs. Oh. There you are. You should be able to unmute now, Mary Ann.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I was wondering if there's a way in which I recognize the vaccine documentation as that being a current issue, but misinformation in general for healthcare, we broaden that to healthcare. We oppose misinformation and the spreading of misinformation on healthcare topics, issues. As while vaccines are the current, it might not be the future. Red herring kind of thing.
Yeah. I love that comment. I think that's why I would suggest that's why we bring this to you all. I'm taking down that as a note to see if there's some language that can be crafted for the board to review. But I do think that there's some importance to deliberate on that point. So thank you, Mary Ann. It's very much appreciated. I'd like to now recognize Leticia Nunez Argote.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
All right, great. Hi, thank you. Leticia Nunez from North Carolina. I'm just curious to ask the board, and maybe not for this current modification, but for future, or kind of start to think about the involvement of the use of AI and the clinical laboratory and its repercussions for patient safety and quality. Those policies, should be something that we might want to start considering, maybe to have colleagues who are already involved in this part of the realm of laboratory science to maybe see where this is taking us, because that is one of the biggest concerns of our generation.
Letty, thank you so much for that comment. I hear you and I completely agree with you. And just a few days ago, I have the pleasure every week of meeting with our EVP, Jim Flanagan, and our President-elect, Stacey Robinson. And we're already starting to talk about our March board meeting. And one of the strategic discussion items that we want to have the board discuss is AI from a ethics standpoint and from a policy standpoint. And so your commentary is perfectly aligned with that. And so I thank you, and I'm looking forward to having that discussion and bringing back to you all the outcomes that a group, a task force, or whatever the board decides on finds from that process. So thank you for reinforcing the bias that the group of us had in thinking about the spring meeting. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns about this advocacy agenda update as presented? Wonderful. Seeing none, I just want to reiterate, I will be bringing back some of these topics to the board of directors at our February monthly check-in call to discuss. And from there, the advocacy agenda will be updated to reflect all of the conversations that have happened thus far in this association year. So thank you. Please refer to agenda item 4E, Constituent Society Policy. I'd like to now have Policy and Procedure Committee Chair, Director Lindsay Davenport Landry, to have the floor.
Thank you. Can you see the slides okay?
Looks great.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to go through a few different things today. Do just put your questions in the chat or we can ask at the end. But I want to speak for proposed policy updates that PNP has been working on. And thank you to Melissa Casper and Kelsey Harper. So I want to go through the use of framework for success, meeting foundational level, voluntary disaffiliation and closure, and abandonment of charter. So these are some things that have kind of been needing some updates. And so this year I was tasked to have our group get together and work on them. I'm going to start with the framework for success. This is the framework for success foundational level that has been put out by our Constituent Society Steering Committee. And as you note, there are multiple pillars here with things that we expect to be done and then how to measure them. And as you walk through them, it shows the basic level that any society should be able to meet. I'm not going to go through it as it's been discussed, but I am going to highlight this area here. We have a future motion from CSSC that will be coming to the board. And the change that is asked for is to move it from having president, treasurer, secretary, director of communications. Sorry, that got separated out. Communications, membership, and president-elect. And we would like to change it to see that there is president, treasurer, secretary, and one additional board member. Now note, and this is something I need to make sure is copacetic with CSSC, because I noted this later, is that we want it to total at least 4 members of the board. So if a state has secretary treasurer, then it may require a second additional board member. So the idea is to take away from prescribing at the foundational level what you need to have and say you need these main positions and an additional board member. So why do I bring this up? This is meeting foundational level. The existing policy that we currently have from ASCLS is that each constituent society on an annual basis must do these following things. And They must host an annual business meeting, and we talk about what that looks like, and that each constituent society must perform a financial audit no less than every 2 years. What we'd like to change that verbiage for in the current policy is to just say each constituent society must meet the minimum foundational standard in the framework for success, and let the framework for success be that goal. So our current, to get into a little bit more detail on what this means is that the current policy says that each constituent society must file IRS forms, have 2 meetings, have a business meeting, hold a scientific meeting, and we're going to go to using the framework for success in having much more easily understood guidelines, have a budget, and update signatories as needed. File your tax return and state incorporations. Host opportunities for learning and building connections. Check bylaws, however, for what specific needs are required for your state and board business meetings. I say check your local bylaws because not each state is exactly the same. Regularly communicate with your members using 2 or more methods. So we're going from very specific to more broad because different states will meet these using different methods. So we know that we have the foundational, evolving, and thriving methods or levels in the what the CSSC has provided us. So foundational is where we state that a society needs to be. Obviously, evolving means that you're doing above that foundational level, and thriving means you're going well beyond what is expected, and we appreciate all that you're doing. We all want to be thriving. However, we are going to put into our policies 2 additional levels, at risk and dormant. What we're asking for is that the at-risk constituent societies that are functioning but do not meet the foundational standard in the framework for success ASCLS will provide support to help them meet the foundational standard, and we will use appropriate interventions. We don't want to state what interventions those will be exactly because each state will have different needs, or each society, I should say. I use the word state, but I do mean society. And ASCLS will continue to collect and distribute membership dues on those states or societies' behalfs. Now, a dormant society. A constituent society that fails to report updated rosters or participate in annual health survey for 2 cycles will be considered dormant. We will not, at the national level, collect nor distribute membership dues for dormant constituent societies. So we ask, that if there is no society functioning, why are we collecting dues? Why are we having those members become a part of that society? And then at risk, we want to make sure that we implement a way for people to have help if they need the help at the society level. So this brings me to voluntary disaffiliation and closure. So voluntary disaffiliation and closure needed to be updated. We are saying that the board of directors is authorized to accept a charter voluntarily surrendered with an official written notification. Closure of the constituent society by voluntary surrender of the charter is in order when the following procedures have been fulfilled. So this next step, and I won't read through it, outlines what needs to occur as we would close a group. But mostly it goes through, make sure that you fill out the correct paperwork at the state and that you settle your financial obligations. Obviously, ASCLS board of directors and staff would help the society that is already struggling to do this task. The ASCLS board will secure any remaining assets until directed by the board to determine what will happen to those assets. Once approved by the board, the constituent society closure will be announced and official notification will be given to the House of Delegates. So main changes from current policy is that we're going to change the word of disaffiliation to closure because that's truly what it is. It's a closure, not a disaffiliation. We no longer must wait 30 days and notify constituents of the state society to vote on the closure. If the state board feels that it's necessary, it will go forward. updated verbiage on closure activities to streamline the process. And then the board of directors will work with the affiliate current members to get them assigned to another constituent society. For instance, I'm here in Iowa. If our society were to close, someone would look at my location and say, hey, maybe they should be part of the Illinois membership. If I was in Western Iowa, maybe I could join with Nebraska if that would work. Or we would put me into a future kind of hub and spoke type of society, or an at-large society. So abandonment of the charter. ASCLS Board of Directors will annually review the list of dormant constituent societies and will consider whether or not to declare the charter abandoned. So this is different than the voluntary dissolution. Voluntary dissolution means that there is still some people in the state that are working with ASCLS, but they know that they're not thriving, they're having issues, etc. This is when no one is there, or we do not get any information from the state for multiple years. Dues previously collected on the behalf of the constituent society that is abandoned will be reserved by ASCLS for the benefit of former members of that constituent society, and the board can then decide what to do with those funds at a later time after it is determined where those members end up. So the disposition of assets for those constituent societies, we wanted to put it into a policy because currently there is not a good policy there to know what to do with those funds. So this is what we are suggesting. The disposition of the society assets must comply with the laws of the state, obviously. The transfer of assets in priority order is to another ASCLS chartered society, which members have joined, to ASCLS to be held in trust for the benefit of the former members, or to ASCLS Education and Research Fund if the state incorporation requires assets to be distributed to a 501c3 organization. So we want to use this framework of success that we already have. We want to be meeting the foundational level. If someone is not meeting that foundational level, we want to have a plan in place to be able to aid them. If there is a society that wants to close, that is, will have a way to do that. That is in policy. And if someone has an abandonment of charter for their state, we also have policy of what to do with that and what to do with those assets. So it's actually clearly written. Note that I am reviewing the changes here. I'm reviewing the policy changes, not how they will be put into practical practice yet. And there will be additional information and procedures which will need to be developed and or adopted before we can totally move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. And before I get to the questions that the raised hands suggest, I want to thank you, Melissa and Kelsey, for your hard work on this. This is actually a very difficult item to proceduralize and put into policy. There's a lot of caveats and nuances to it, and so your hard work from the group is deeply appreciated. At this time, I'd like to recognize Barbara Brown. And Barbara, you should be able to directly unmute. There we go.
Thank you. Lindsay, I have a question concerning the dormant societies. If I were to be a member of a dormant society, but I still want to be an active member of ASCLS, but it says they will not collect nor distribute membership dues. So could you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. So you can still be a member. We will turn off in the pay screen Colorado as a state, right? And you would be able to pick a different society to be a member of. So you would be able to choose which area you would like to give your funds to. And I believe this already has happened, but is not in a policy for one of the southern states that has gone dormant.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to now recognize Halcyon St. Hill.
Thank you, Kyle. I like the first question that was answered. That answers part of what I wanted to know.
All right. Did you have another question, Callie?
Callie, you got muted again. So if you do have
Oh,
there we
okay.
go.
Okay, thanks for the information. And I'd like to follow up with another question. And that is, what happens if you have a state that's already incorporated and they are failing? I'm supposing that the state has to handle its part on the state level in terms of their incorporation, but they also have to work with ASCLS. So do you have plans on how that would be handled?
So it goes into a little bit more detail here. And that would be, submit an official statement, settle any outstanding financial obligations, file the appropriate dissolution reports with the state or federal agencies, and secure the assets.
Yeah, but I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
What I was thinking about is that there are states that are incorporated. An example would be, all right, I won't get into examples, but we do have some states that are incorporated in their state and they are part of ASCLS. And I know how that works very well. But I'm trying to think if the state winds up having to go through this process, would it be similar to what you have? Because the financial aspects might be a little bit
Oh,
different.
yeah, this is actually aimed, sorry, Callie, this is actually aimed for the state's closure, not for the national organization.
Not for, okay.
Yeah, we were trying to write it for if a state wanted to close.
Okay.
This is what they would do. We had some verbiage, but it wasn't very clear, so we wanted to clean it up. Knowing that we've had some states that wanted to go through this process, we wanted to ensure that we had a better policy for them or a procedure. And knowing that some of our like New England states are joining each other as well. So what they need to do if you're going to only have one charter and not, let's say, 3 any longer.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
All right. Seeing no other hands. Oh, I'd like to now recognize Emily Reed.
Hello, it's Emily Reed from Pennsylvania. I have 2 questions, and I might have missed them, but I'd love to go over them real quick. Let's assume that a state called Bobland has they're going through voluntary surrender. So the board has decided they want to be closed, but there are members who don't want that. It looks like the state board can close the chapter without the members voting. So how can we protect members who still want to keep it open?
I think that the board of directors will have to hear from those people who don't want it closed and see if they're willing to, take an active role in the constituent society. Ideally, we would be there when they're an at-risk of association before we got to a voluntary disaffiliation. If this is a real example, you can reach out to me or someone else on the board and we can work through that.
Oh no, it's not that I know of. I'm just thinking of
just hypothetically.
Hypothetical. I want to protect the people that we represent, right? So
sure.
The second question I have is what kind of warning will a society receive if they are at risk? And for example, they might not know. Or they're
that is going to be developed. First was deciding that is the area in which we want to focus and go forward. Next will be if the board does approve these changes and updates in the policy to protocolize them.
So is that like there might be a sort of probationary period is potentially in development?
Probationary, I would say we're going to look to get you help if that is what is indicated. And it, some people just, I know Iowa, for example, where that's where I am at, like we need to put in our, we have a pretty good society. We do a lot of things, but it looks like nobody hit send on the health survey. So we need to check in and make sure that we get that sent. If there were other things that we aren't sending in our roster, for example, then we would want somebody to check in on that. If it happens year after year, then the board should look at that and say, hey, what's going on over here? Or if something else comes up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to now
We did leave
recognize-
a few of these things, sorry, Kyle, a few of these things a little bit broad. That way, as we have things that come up, we can look at the policy and decide which way to go, and it is not specifically prescribed in here at this time. So, thank you.
I'd like to now recognize Mary Ann Downs.
I have two questions, if that would be so loud.
Yes.
My first one is on the definition of dormancy. It stated that, pardon me, sorry. It stated that a constituent society failed to report updated rosters or participate in the annual health survey for 2 cycles will be considered dormant. Is that supposed to be or and? So as long as the constituent society reports their officers, then they're good. Or if they don't report their officers but complete the health survey, they are good. They might be at risk, but they're not dormant. Is that correct?
Societies that fail to report updated rosters or participate in the annual health survey for 2 cycles will be considered dormant. I guess the way I was thinking about it is both of those things need to be done to be considered at risk.
The way I read it was one or the other had to be. That's why I'm asking for clarification.
Yeah. Constituent societies that fail to report updated rosters for 2 cycles or participate in will be considered dormant. Let's go back to our CSFC and think about that. How we want to put it exactly. The health survey, however, doesn't include the roster. So it would need to be that you need to do both of these items to be considered in a non-dormant state. So I can wordsmith this a bit. Good question. We can take any ambiguity away.
Yeah, I think that conjunction just needs some evaluation, as Mary Ann is suggesting, for clarity.
Yeah, so
yeah,
okay,
and I would bring it back. I bring it back to policy and procedure on what's the intention and then what's the appropriate conjunction there, and or in that case.
Can do. Thank you for pointing that out.
Mary Ann, thank you for calling that out so we can make sure there's crisp language there.
Okay.
Did you
I do have a second question.
Yes.
What is the actual timeline and publication of the final policies and processes? Because we haven't had access to the existing policy. So why would we even meet it? And it's been stated that that constituent societies do not give an annual report, which if we're using the health survey as an annual report, it probably should be called that. But since we have not been required to have one, then why would we complete the health survey? It is not required.
The idea is that the health survey will now be required going forward if this is put into place. On the policy and procedures, I think we've discussed that a few times, and I'm not going to address that at this time.
So if this policy is not available and is not available for those who are in the constituent societies to be able to review regularly, how are they going to be able to meet the policies? They cannot do that, and that is unreasonable.
All right, noted. Thank you.
I would like to now recognize Brenda Cochis.
Yes, thank you, Kyle. First of all, I'd like to commend the policy committee for all of their work on clarifying procedures for an organization or a state organization that's unable to meet its obligations. It can't have been an easy job. I can certainly appreciate that. But I would also like to bring to everyone's attention the fact that the framework for success, one of the purposes is for societies to grow and develop, not to use it as a way to add requirements. And one of the things that we had hoped to do, and I don't think we've quite gotten there yet, is to give examples of how societies can grow, get into some of the other levels, the evolving and thriving. So while we do have a minimum level under foundational, we would like societies to grow and thrive. And that's really what the goal of the organization needs to be, not specifically what you fall into when you're not doing everything. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up is that sometimes you may be in a situation where you have 4 people that are willing to work with the society, but not all of them will necessarily wear the traditional president-elect, etc. They may want to govern the society as a group. So I certainly hope that the national organization will be open to different structures that may work better for state society. Thank you.
Lindsay, your microphone seems to have cut out. It looked like you were saying something. Nope, can't hear you. You're not muted though, which is odd.
Is that better?
Yes, now I can hear you. At this time, I'd like to recognize, or
Okay.
Lindsay, do you have any comments for what Brenda just mentioned, or is it just a
No,
statement of
what I
question?
was saying is, thank you. Thank you to Brenda.
At this time, I'd like to recognize, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna turn my video off just in case it's bandwidth issue.
At this time, I'd like to recognize Darby Nahidi.
Hello, Darby Nahidi, Illinois. I did have a quick question or concern. So I know that COVID was an extenuating circumstance and probably like once in a lifetime and hopefully once in a lifetime. But does this document account for any other extenuating circumstances? For example, like a constituent society at the beginning of COVID was probably dormant for, well, would have fallen in one of these categories due to not putting in reports for 2 years, or 2 or 3 years, and then had to get back on its feet. And that might take a while, maybe a couple of years. And so if like the state's funds are going to be surrendered, basically, if it's radio silent, has anything been built into this document for that? Or would the board like consider that in that kind of situation?
I think the board would consider those things in that situation, knowing that everyone needs a minute to regroup and get back on track. I believe that I can speak that the intent of this is to aid those that have had an ongoing issue, but to get people who are at risk aid.
Okay.
To say specifically, I cannot, but we'll take that under advisement when putting it into procedure, or and we can work through that, because this is not the full document, but just the highlights I picked out.
Thank you. I did have one other question or concern, or just, I guess, question. In terms of some constituent societies, when they want to make changes, let's say they are not able to meet the requirements as are written in their own bylaws, but are having issues with the amount of like leadership or volunteering for leadership positions, that they're being limited by their own bylaws and they're unable to have a state meeting or have a meeting where the membership can vote for different bylaws. What is done in that situation?
I have a little bit of understanding on what should be done from being a bylaws liaison in the past, and we would suggest working with the bylaws committee on establishing an exemption or something around those, depending on what the situation exactly is. I don't want to prescribe not knowing the whole situation, but anybody who is having issues at the state, reach out to me or one of the other board members, and we can work with you to get aid in figuring out situations like this. It might not be our direct thing, but we can find you a person that is more in the know, or if the staff have a idea that's been used at another state, etc. So we want to ensure, especially when we see these societies that are at risk, that we are able to provide aid before they get to a dormant status.
That would be the at-risk category?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
At this time, I'd like to recognize Pat Tilley.
I just want to comment on Brenda and Darby and some of the questions. I know that this appears to be gloom and doom, and I think you have to look at the back end of this, because we have had many discussions on ways we can support constituent societies, because we really believe our constituent societies are the major framework of our organization. The other thing I want to remind people is we've been looking at a lot of levels of governance across the organization and how we function. And so if you take this and look at the other caveat side of this, we are trying to develop resources for constituent societies. We've done a lot with the crowded platform and the micro websites and all those things. So we're trying to provide those resources to build them up. But the other thing we're doing, and this is kind of on you kind of look past just this, that framework is being used by our awards committee to re-envision how we recognize growth in our societies and positive experience as well. So I know this all looks like doom and gloom, but there really is another motivation for this, for us to be able to know what's going on so that we can provide those resources. Because if we don't know what's happening in an organization level at that state level or in a constituent society, we can't provide those services for them.
Thank you, Pat. And I would also just like to comment that, we as laboratory professionals, if the procedure says 1 ml of reagent, we know that's 1 ml of reagent, and there's no deviation. With the questions regarding flexibility and extenuating circumstances, you'll notice that a lot of what the Policy and Procedure Committee has developed drives things back to the ASCLS Board of Directors, who, in their good conscience in the future, our future boards, will look at extenuating circumstances, will look at all the facts in the case, and exercise discretion to make sure that ultimately members are getting value for their dollars. And in addition to that when members aren't getting value for their dollars, we have recourse to make sure that we can look at our governance structures and adapt and make sure that those folks are getting value. That's what it all boils down to. So seeing no further hands, I would like to once again thank the Policy and Procedure Committee for your hard work on this. I do see one hand that has now been raised, so I will recognize Mary Ann Downs.
I also want to thank the Policy and Procedures Committee for putting this out, because I know only the board has to approve policies and policy changes. So I do appreciate that, as only the changes to the bylaws have to come before the House. So I do appreciate the transparency and being able to see this policy at least. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. All right. Seeing no further hands, please refer to agenda item 4F, bylaws regarding regional councils. I'd like to take a step back at this moment and put on our time machine and go back to our November Board of Directors meeting. At that meeting of the ASCLS board, there was a motion made to officially sunset the region structure of the ASCLS. Now, of course, the regional councils, which are really the regional structure, the board cannot unilaterally make that decision. It's part of our bylaws, having regional councils. It would require a vote of you all, of the House of Delegates. However, the director that made it really felt strongly that we need to be having these discussions in the organization and that we need to be looking at change. And the board members agreed with her. And so that motion was brought forward to the bylaws committee. I'm now going to share my screen. Let's see, this right here. Now, what the bylaws committee deliberated on when this was brought to them was we can approach this motion and present it to you all as a house in June while we're in St. Louis together, which will be next year's House of Delegates. So please keep in contact with future delegates, please, all right? But option one is we just eliminate Article 9, which is regional councils. We just delete that language, delete that section. It is basically a straightforward reading of what the motion was. However, the bylaws committee wanted to also propose, instead of a straightforward deletion of Article 9, which relates to regional councils, that the language be softened in that article in a way that will move away from there shall be regional councils to that there may be regional councils, and also delete the number of councils. The idea behind the bylaws committee's sentiments on this were that when the motion was discussed, there was no argument that constituent societies should still feel comfortable working together and collaborating and being a community, which is one of our strategic pillars. But having the second option available allows for some oversight within the organization of these inter constituent society relationships to make sure that we don't have well-intentioned individuals doing things that they accidentally shouldn't be doing. Still provides oversight for the organization. And so what the board of directors would like some feedback on, the board is going to deliberate these two options, vote on which option they prefer at their spring interim meeting. But they'd like to hear your feedback as a House of Delegates right now on if there's any strong preference for, again, option one, which is a complete deletion of Article 9, or option two, which is a change and softening of the language related to regional councils. And at this time, I will open the floor for opinions and any, I don't know if I can answer any questions, but we have the board liaison to the bylaws committee here that may be able to do so. So are there any questions, comments, or items you'd like to bring up at this time related to these two approaches? First hand up was Barbara Brown. I'd like to recognize you.
Thank you, Kyle. I am a member of Region 8, and we have been extremely active in the society and the 5 constituent societies that belong to Region 8 ever since I've been a member. And so I am in favor of option 2, that we be allowed to continue to have a regional council that consists of whatever Roman numeral you want to put on it, but consists of the 5 constituent societies. And I think I speak for everyone that we are very, very strong. We are very, very active at the regional level. We support one another throughout the year for meetings and things like that. And option 2 works for me. Option 1 is absolutely off the table.
Thank you, Barbara. I'd like to now recognize Nicola Chin.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Nicola Chin. I'm the president-elect for Idaho. And I was at our last meeting when this was being discussed. And I saw the amount of hands and claps in dissolving the region councils. And I was a little heartbroken by it, but I also understand the importance of doing what's best for all of us as an organization. I really like option 2 and that is being presented here today. And maybe the thought is that we can work towards, there are obviously a lot of regional councils that aren't thriving. So maybe with time, by at least keeping this as an option 2, that we can at some point get back to having thriving regions again. I just had a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to just take a quick detour in the hand raising order because Director Noblet has her hand raised and she was the maker of that motion. So Steph, would you like to comment at this time?
Oh, yeah, I didn't need to jump ahead of anybody,
Well,
but
it
I
was
just
your
wanted
motion
to ask
originally. Yeah.
more of a clarifying question because based on the last 2 comments, and this wasn't how I interpret it, and I don't know if somebody on the bylaws committee can, but my understanding was under both of these options, regions would still exist, and that was the purpose or the intent behind my motion, that regions could still exist if they wanted to. It just wouldn't be mandated by national. So, and please somebody correct me if I'm wrong. So under option 1, we would be deleting that current section in the bylaws. So Article 9, that would be removed. But you could still have a region. It just wouldn't be, it would essentially be, for lack of a better phrase, a free for all, in that you could do whatever you wanted with your region and you could make it up wherever you wanted. Now, option 2 changes it to being required, from being required to a may. So instead of just completely deleting that language, the language is still there, but it's not a requirement, and it would be more prescriptive. So that there's this sort of outline you could follow, as opposed to kind of creating something where you want to start from the ground up in creating this quote unquote region. So I just wanted to make that clarification, and hopefully that's the right interpretation. So please, somebody on the bylaws or however correct me. But I just wanted to address that because I think from the comments that I was hearing that there was some confusion. So no matter what happens, you can still have your whatever you identify as a region. That nobody is taking that away. That will always, you can still have your regions and collaborate and hold your spring or fall meetings as a region. Nobody's saying you can't do that. It's just how prescriptive we want that to be and how much guidance under the national level. So thanks.
That's correct, Steph. I wanna back you up on that. I also think we use the word region when our governance documents are very focused on the regional council as the structural element there. Neither of these approaches would take the collaboration off the table, the collaboration being what we currently call regions. However, bylaws is proposing the second option to avoid, as you put it, the free for all, which I do like that line. So Moving to the next person that had their hand raised, Bill Hunt, you have the floor.
Yeah, Hunt, Pennsylvania. I would like to express my support of option 2. Barbara Snyderman has been trying to help get our region back together. One of the reasons that I am so in favor of this is that, for instance, we are many states in Region 2, or used to be Region 2, which are relatively small. So, for instance, we never realized that our state meeting in Pennsylvania was so close to the one in New Jersey, and it would better help our communication between the states. But that is my major reason of supporting option 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next up, Crystal Jerome, you have the floor. Oh, there we go. And Crystal, you'll just have to unmute. There we go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Fabulous. Crystal Jerome from Minnesota, president of Minnesota. I just want to thank Steph for bringing this forward and confirming, because I was going to pose a question of whether or not that meant they couldn't continue. So thank you for confirming that. I also would like to express my support for option number 2. My concern is that if we were to go with option number 1, we would lose some of our opportunity to be supported from a national level. So I would request that the board, as you're deliberating on this, also think of the outcomes and the impact that either option would have. So while yes, we can vote on one or the other, I think what happened again when we lost the regional directors as that statement of being a regional director, the outcome was not necessarily thought of as to what would be the everlasting effects of that. So I just really would like the board to take that into consideration of what would happen if you were to go with option number 1 versus option number 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Next up, Darby Nahidi, you have the floor.
Thank you. Darby, again from Illinois. So question more so with respect to option 1, but it also like option 2 also affects it, as both options affect constituent society bylaws. How do you suggest with either one of these constituent societies go about changing their bylaws, or how does, because a lot of constituent society bylaws reference regions and the verbiage, do they have to go through the House of Delegates like normal for their constituent society and have the change in the bylaws voted on if it's like deleted and or no longer a requirement?
I certainly can be corrected on this. However, if either of these options, the answer is no. A constituent society would not need to bring amended bylaws to our House of Delegates. They would need to make sure that their bylaws are congruent with the ASCLS bylaws. And that's where our bylaws committee would step in and provide support, guidance, and review for that at that point. But no, it would not have, the constituent society's bylaws would not have to come before the House of Delegates.
I just wanted to clarify. I meant the constituent societies, like house, well, their membership.
For items like this, they would have to be congruent. So there would have to be information. Can someone please clarify with the bylaws knowledge stronger than mine, would this have to be raised to a vote for their membership at that point? Jim, I see you have unmuted yourself.
Yeah, so that depends on the individual constituent society. There are rules written into every bylaws that describes the process for amending or changing bylaws. In the case of Illinois specifically, which I'm aware of, the bylaws are such a mess that the board needs to essentially start from scratch, use the model bylaws that's been developed by the experts on our bylaws committee, and simply change the name and adopt those as your new bylaws. organizations should not be twisting themselves into knots over bylaws, these kinds of bylaws issues. In the specific question that Darby raised, if there is a specific provision in the bylaws that reference regions and option one is chosen by the House of Delegates to pass, then yes, the constituent society will need to follow the procedures prescribed in their bylaws to change those bylaws. That is assuming that the bylaws are a functional document for that constituent society. In the case of a constituent society where the bylaws are not a functional governance document, considerations are somewhat different.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. The amount of permutations amongst constituent societies with their bylaws is where my hesitation kicked in there, so I appreciate it. Next, Ed Peterson, you have the floor.
Yes, Peterson from Florida. Just want to support option number 2 because it still gives the constituent societies the option to have regional meetings as well. I think if we put option 1 in place, there may be some more misunderstanding about regions themselves. So I really think number 2 gives us, instead of going cold turkey, it still gives the constituent societies who want to continue doing regional councils that option to do so. Thank you.
Ed. Very much appreciated. Barbara Brown, you have the floor.
Yes, Brown from Colorado. I just need a little bit of clarification. If option 1 would be chosen and the entire Article 9 about regional councils is struck from the ASCLS bylaws, that would mean that if the constituent societies wanted to get together and have a regional council on their own, there would be no connection between them and ASCLS. So they could do whatever they want, but if they used any ASCLS logos or anything, that would be against policy. Is that correct? If there's nothing in the bylaws for ASCLS to have regional councils and regions, and several states got together and decided they were going to have a regional council and a region, they couldn't use any ASCLS logos or anything else because it's not regulated in the ASCLS bylaws. Is it?
I would suggest, and we would have to do a full review of bylaws and policies to confirm this statement. However, there's nothing prohibiting constituent societies, even those that would be working together, from using ASCLS logos. Certainly groups that have collaborative state meetings with other organizations, and they work as an almost nearly separate entity, certainly can still use the ASCLS logo because they're doing so ethically and appropriately. I don't think there's anything prohibitive there. But again, it would take a full review of our governing documents to be able to answer that with absolute certainty, Barbara.
Okay, I was not referring to the constituent societies themselves, but to the region as an entity, as a separate entity. Since it's not covered in the ASCLS bylaws, there would be no reason for them to be able to use any ASCLS. In other words, I can't make a statement someplace in a newspaper claiming to be writing as representative of ASCLS for some off-the-wall thing. That's
Yeah,
not.
That's absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct on that, Barbara. Yeah.
If someone comes together and puts a region together.
Correct. And that's the wild, wild west, I think we're worried about.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping that will.
I should be careful. I think that's the wild, wild west the bylaws committee is worried about. So I apologize for saying that.
Stimulate voting against option 1.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Leticia, you have the floor. Letty, sorry.
Hello, folks, and thank you. Hope you can hear me okay. So in general, not wanting to contradict, I understand that the feeling of support for option 2. there are two things that I worry about in terms of just regions and their existence in general, being that there were, and then they have been, as it's stated, not all regional councils are functioning. I am interested in two things. One, because I feel like there used to be financial support and physical support for region, representatives. I remember it feeling like it went away, and there not being a designated region council person that had the power and ability to have funds from the society at the region level to travel and meet with the different leadership of constituent societies. That went away. Now COVID and Zoom have helped with that. But I just came to North Carolina a couple years ago, and we didn't even have our own Zoom account paid for by our own chapter. So, like use of those resources was kind of like the local society's responsibility. And so to me, regions were useful, but have been kind of, I can still be useful where they're correctly functioning. But I feel like not having that as a designated label provides chapters with the flexibility to pair up or group with others around them that may be, functional. Because not throwing any shade, but having seen some quite dysfunctional chapters around, it did feel like there was the one chapter that was like pulling all the weight. And in seeing the language here where it says in option 2, regional council shall consist of officers of constituent society. So what I'm looking at is, as a president of a chapter, I'm also going to be having to be responsible for regional functions. And we're already stretched very thin as far as some of our constituent societies' leadership functions, just trying to keep the chapter afloat, to even consider not having that additional person who was supported by the society at the national level, at a regional level, to provide additional guidance and leadership that is outside of, the chapter structure. So my concern with keeping the regions I'm okay with people that are in regions that are working, but I would like to have more clarity as to what would that look like if I'm in a chapter that does not necessarily belong to a functional region, or how would that, like, as a chapter, would I be able to say, I choose not to belong to the region anymore? I want to hang out with my friends in this other place just because they align better with, I don't know, my time zone. So I'm just saying, like, it's very murky to me, because again, it used to be, I feel like there was financial support from ASCLS to provide for regional councils, and now it feels like it's just all going to be more labor for the chapter leadership.
Thank you, Letty. I did see a hand disappear. I believe it was Crystal Jerome's, but if you don't, if there was nothing, Crystal, don't feel the need to raise your hand again unless you'd like to. All right. Holly Weinberg has the floor.
Yes, Weinberg Bylaws Committee. When this was first introduced at the fall board meeting, the spirit of it was that regional council or regions aren't necessarily functional across all regions, but that if regions still want to work together, that's okay. So when this came to the bylaws committee and we discussed it, we felt that by totally removing the Article 9, that's really removing the option, or that gives the impression of removing the option entirely. By changing this from regional council shall to may, that there shall be regional councils, to there may be regional councils, this is leaving that option open, and we felt that was addressing the whole spirit of the original motion. We're not saying that and that's why we're using the word may in here, that it leaves that option open for regions to work together. And we have under composition, it shall consist of officers as defined in regional guidelines. So we're not saying who has to be on it, that the region does this, but this is just, if we totally remove that article, then we're saying that ASCLS is not supporting regions according to our bylaws. But by leaving that article in there and saying that we may be able to do that, we're still having that support. And as Barbara pointed out, we can still say word ASCLS region. So I just wanted to clarify that we're just changing, it's the little word from shall to may to leave the option open.
Thank you, Holly. Much appreciated for the context from a bylaws committee member. Now, I'm assuming this is not your name, but Fire Tablet, you have the floor. So Fire Tablet, I wish I knew who it was, but you have your hand raised and you now have the ability to unmute yourself.
Is that is that me?
It is you. Hello. It's lovely to see you, Marcia.
And I don't know why it says fire tablet since I'm on my desktop right now, but
It's the
oh well.
volcanoes of Hawaii speaking for you right now.
Hi there. I'm very much in favor of states or societies that work together to continue to work together. As it's written, I'm wondering who decides what the regional council is, and can it be fluid? For example, Hawaii, if we decided to go with Washington and Oregon, could we decide to do that and then later on maybe do another one? How do you envision that working?
I do not believe, I think this will be part of the board of directors deliberations at this point and why we brought it forward to hear questions like that, Marcia. And so I'm writing that one down because I would like to have an answer, regardless of which way the board of directors goes, because I don't know what the board will decide on which option to present to you all. If option 2 is what the board suggests to the House, this question is pertinent, and I believe that we should have it addressed when we present this to you all.
Okay. I think option 1 is cleaner, and it doesn't prohibit anybody from joining together with other states. And there's still ASCLS members and constituent societies, so they would still be under the purview of National ASCLS. But I would be fine with either. I would like to clarify how regions would be defined.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback, and I'll make sure the board deliberates on that.
Thank you.
Mary Ann Downs, you have the floor.
Sorry, thank you, Downs, Pennsylvania. I would just question, or I'm asking for clarification as to what the timeline would be for implementation. If I understand correctly, whatever is voted on by the House, the timeline for implementation is instantaneous. So at the close of the House, this is not the new rule. But can you speak to if that is correct and when the policies would be changed to align with that and when those would be published out so that the constituent societies could then make the requisite changes in their bylaws and get those through their approval processes?
So great question. I would suggest, yes, once the House of Delegates votes on a bylaws amendment, that change to the bylaws is instantaneous. However, operationally, there would still, as you have alluded to, be changes to our policies and procedures that the board of directors would have to be working through. I certainly do not want to give a specific time frame because who knows what the world's going to throw on us. But that being said, I believe that there has been a substantial number of very pertinent questions that would shape policy. And this would be something that President-elect Stacey Robinson would drive forward as an important agenda item. Stacey may disagree with that, but I have a sense that she agrees with that. So I think it would be a community conversation on the policies and procedures like we're aiming to do. And as we've demonstrated in good faith today through these discussions, and we would aim to have those changes done within no later than I hope the association year. All right, seeing no further hands, please give me a moment. Please refer to agenda item 5, new business. As a reminder, to bring any item of new business to this House, there needs to be a motion to suspend Standing Rule 5, which must have a second. That motion is not debatable, and it is not amendable. This motion requires a 2/3 vote of members present on the floor at the time of the vote. Do I hear any need to suspend Standing Rule 5? Seeing none, at this time I will entertain announcements or celebrations from any of the delegations. And, oh, yes, Carly Preston has the floor. Just make sure you unmute yourself, friend. Oh, have you unmuted yourself, Carly? Because we can't hear you. Okay, unfortunately, Carly, we're unable to hear you, and it doesn't look like, so I apologize. Of course, there is the House of Delegates community that you can post any items to. Jim, can we try giving her the floor once more to see if you can unmute yourself, Carly? We'll try one more time. Nope. All right. Unfortunately, we can't. But again, feel free to communicate any celebrations or announcements in that community. Are there any additional announcements? Seeing no hands, the 2026 Mid-Year House of Delegates is adjourned at 4:13 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and I hope you have an incredible 2026. Look forward to seeing you in St. Louis.